Welcome to Maritime Pakistan, your gateway to the fascinating world of oceans and the opportunities they present to every one of us. Today's video explores naval warfare through the book Fleet Tactics and Coastal Combat. Today we will discuss the first chapter, Cornerstones. All right, let's set the scene. Picture this. You're on the deck of the French flagship, the Orient, with Vice Admiral Bruise. Now, this guy is a protege of Napoleon, a fantastic organizer who just got 400 ships to Egypt. But a seasoned naval fighter? He's not. For weeks, he's been stuck, unable to decide, should we fight at sea or right here at anchor? He's chosen to stay put, but you can just feel the unease in the air. Take a look at this. The French are convinced they're in a strong position, tucked up against the coast. But the reality? It's a completely different story. They are profoundly unready. Get this, 3,000 of their men are ashore looking for food and water. And the critical preparations? They just haven't been done. There are no stern anchors to keep the cannons pointed out to sea, no cables between ships to stop the enemy from just sailing right through their line. It's a fleet that's just rotting at anchor. Then, all of a sudden, sails appear on the horizon. It's the British. And a wave of relief, maybe even a little arrogance, goes through the French fleet. They're thinking, it's that madman Nelson. Surely he's not crazy enough to attack our impregnable line now, with the sun going down. He'll wait till morning. So they get ready for a fight, but only on the side facing the sea. They figure tomorrow's the day.
But here's the thing about Nelson. He doesn't do patience. He has absolutely no intention of waiting. As the French just watch, completely stunned, the lead British ship, HMS Goliath, doesn't wait. It just rounds the point and sails directly into the bay. Nelson is coming in right now. For Bruise, who hasn't prepared for a night fight at all, this is just unthinkable.
And then, the moment of tactical horror. Bruise sees something that sends a chill right down his spine. The Goliath isn't lining up to fight his seaward cannons. No, it's sailing inshore of the French line, in that little gap between the ships and the land. In an instant, he gets it. The British are going to sail down the undefended side of his fleet, hitting each ship from both sides and just tearing them apart one by one. Now this is fascinating. What you're seeing here is the difference between a plan and the messy, chaotic reality of a battle. On the left, that's Nelson's super simple sketch from before the fight. On the right, that's what actually happened. It looks like a total mess, but here's the key. Nelson's captains, who he'd drilled for months, understood his intent, and his intent was to concentrate overwhelming firepower. They anchored 2 British ships for every one French ship and just systematically smashed the front of the French line. By 10 o'clock that night, the battle hits this terrifying climax. The French flagship, the massive 120-gun Orient, catches fire. The flames race towards the powder magazines and the ship just explodes. The blast was so huge, so powerful, it stopped the entire battle cold for a full 10 minutes. Anyone who saw it never, ever forgot that moment. The Battle of the Nile was, without a doubt, a stunning victory. But it's so much more than just a great story. It's basically a masterclass in naval combat. So what can this incredible clash teach us? Well, it perfectly demonstrates 6 fundamental principles of warfare at sea. These are what the book calls the 6 cornerstones. And they really are timeless. You could apply these ideas to almost any naval battle in history. The Battle of the Nile just happens to be a perfect case study for every single one of them. So let's walk through them. Okay, let's kick things off with the first group of cornerstones. These really focus on the essential triad of warfare, the people who fight, their shared mindset, and the machines they use to do it. The first cornerstone is so simple, but it's probably the most important. Men matter most. And here, the contrast is just night and day. You've got Nelson, who spent months at sea drilling his captains, creating a team that could think for itself. And then you have Bruise, with raw crews paralyzed by his own indecision and caught completely flat-footed. You could argue this battle was won long before a single shot was ever fired. Cornerstone number 2 is doctrine. Now, don't think of this as some rigid, dogmatic rulebook. It's not. It's more like a shared understanding, a common language that everyone speaks. Nelson's captains didn't follow his plan perfectly, they couldn't, but they all understood his intent: concentrate our force. Doctrine is the glue that let them adapt and act decisively, even in total chaos. And number 3 flows right from that. To know tactics, you have to know your technology. At the Nile, both sides had the same tech, the ship of the line.
Nelson's genius wasn't that he had better gadgets, it was that he had a deeper understanding of what his ships could do, their limits, and how to use them to achieve his tactical goal. That's where technology and doctrine really come together.
So we've talked about the men, mindset, and machines. Now let's zoom out a bit. The next two cornerstones connect the fight at sea to the bigger strategic picture. What's happening back on land? So why was this battle such a big deal? It wasn't just about sinking ships. The real purpose, the seat of purpose, was on the land. It was all about cutting Napoleon's army in Egypt off from its supply lines back in France. That single battle at sea had a devastating and final effect on the entire land campaign.
This brings us to a famous saying from Nelson himself, and it's our fifth cornerstone. A ship's a fool to fight a fort. And it's true. A ship is at a huge disadvantage against a fort on land. A fort can get hammered and be repaired. A warship? Well, a single bad hit can be the end of it.
But that doesn't mean navies are just helpless against forts. You just have to be smart about it. You use your mobility to avoid getting into a slugging match. You can try to just run past it. Or you can land forces to attack it from behind. And if you have absolutely no other choice, well, then you bring overwhelming force and you break the rule.
And this brings us to the final, and maybe the most important cornerstone of them all. It's the principle that ties everything else together. It explains exactly how Nelson was so successful. It's this: attack effectively first. For centuries, great commanders like Nelson knew this intuitively. It was a gut feeling. But it wasn't until 1914 that a man named Frederick Lanchester actually put it into mathematical terms. His equations quantify the absolutely devastating power of concentrating your force. It proves what military leaders always knew: bringing more weapons to bear on the enemy creates a snowballing, cumulative advantage. This chart makes the whole idea crystal clear. In ancient combat, a bigger force won, sure, but it took heavy losses. But under modern conditions, where everyone can fire at once, Lanchester's square law applies. The bigger force not only wins, it suffers far, far fewer casualties. It's just brutal math. And it is exactly what Nelson did at the Nile. By bringing 2 ships to bear on every 1 French ship, he wasn't just doubling his firepower. He was creating a snowballing advantage that annihilated the French fleet. This leaves us with a really critical question. The technology of war has changed in ways Nelson couldn't even have imagined. But does this fundamental principle still hold true? In an age of AI, drones, and hypersonic missiles, the ability to see first, decide first, and strike first is probably more critical than it has ever been. The tools are different, but that timeless need to attack effectively first is arguably the defining factor of modern combat. We hope that you liked today's video. Post your questions in the comments section for future videos.